Okay, I'm going to start with another CC playthrough, and this is Ogopogo. Interesting name. Golf club by Matty from Canada. Matt's had a few courses out. Had one on tour, I believe. So certainly not a complete rookie by any means. I think this might be his first contest. So really interested to see what he's gone. And I don't think I'd seen a whip thread, so it's interesting. We've obviously got an autumn. By the looks of it, I think autumn. Yeah. As with all of these, this is going to be one of two playthroughs that I do before kind of for first round of judging. It's on default conditions. We'll if it were massively windy, we'll exit out or whatever. Because obviously schedulers can change that. What you're going to get really is my thoughts as I go through. And sometimes there may be things that I'll note that I say will need a couple of goes. Okay, so we've got really undulating fairways but huge amounts of width here. It's very tricky to work with this amount of width and have it not feel too empty. I kind of feel parts of that flyover felt a bit empty, but we'll look. Okay, so as a first tee shot, I'm gonna be honest, I don't love the blind tee shot on the first, particularly if I'm hitting down this side and I can't see it and I'm potentially running off. I feel like we could have maybe had a kind of neater collection area, or if you run fairway down here but it's got a worse angle in or something. I don't know. It feels a bit of a random first hole. I'm all for quirk. I don't know. The retaining wall, we've seen a lot of them in this contest. It's pretty well done. It's a bit... I mean, they are what they are. I think with this, you can see it's kind of coming through at the edges. You need to raise it up a little bit, because this is actually the retaining wall surface and this bit's the land up to here. You really want the land going into the retaining wall, and given that you've hidden kind of the edge of it with planting anyway, I think if you'd sculpted up a little bit more, that would have helped. All of this is really nice. The planting is really pretty. It's a really cool first tee. Okay, hole-wise, I guess the question is there an angle advantage? I think for this pin you've got this giant slope which can act as a backstop if I go down the right. I think strategy-wise it's solid. I don't love the huge randomness here where, I mean, I think obviously going uphill, and I think the player's driver-ish down the right hand side, but I think driver's going to go through this hill here, particularly with the trees growing into it. I don't really believe this. I don't feel it's massively natural. I think we'd see kind of a more gentle slope down here. Maybe if you'd had more of your kind of bushes and things coming through here, that would have helped you. If that bit of planting had come out to here a little bit more. Just, and kind of the fairway edges here. I am pro kind of having fairways run round where playable surfaces would be, but I'm also kind of pro, would anyone use this bit of fairway? I kind of feel like it'd be neater if you were going in here. Maybe. That's a nitpick. I think my major thing with this hole is I don't like a blind. It's not even that. It's not that I don't like it. I just don't think you needed to go blind on your first tee shot. And I think that hole would have been better if you could have seen everything. Okay, big green, which is good. Big greens are fun. You can put slopes on them. 145. The little patchy yellows, this is very much a personal thing and the minorest of nitpicks and doesn't matter. I'd quite like to see those be more of a constant slope. Like if you can try to get them constant yellow, just if you get into the kind of bitty yellows, then you tend to be running the risk of pins being slightly illegal. I think it just looks neater and really signals to the player where a slope is if you have them pretty consistent. That's a better swing. Hopefully we're setting up for... yeah. There we go. I like the view over the water. Yeah. It's a solid first hole. It's a nice relatively... it's a relatively easy opener in the sense that it's not massively difficult. Or rather, you've given me a big green. Speaking of big greens, this one's very much on the large side. I feel this green's a bit too big. Yeah, you have to have some really funky slopes to make a green like this work. I think you've got them actually. And I guess it's really hard to... I'd have probably cut this green down by maybe a third. And as I've said with many of these videos, I know I have just come out of a contest where I had bigger greens than pretty much anyone has ever seen. But I think there's got to be a reason for them, and it's got to fit with the terrain, and there's a lot of... I think if you're going this big, you don't want it being quite this flat. I understand the logic though, it's CC, you want people to hit greens and score, so I definitely wouldn't go tiny. I just think it's a difficult thing to gauge scale with. Keep turning, thank you. Putting's been good recently. One thing I am noticing, the underbrush is maybe a little small. I think you can get away with making these bushes even bigger, taking up more space, because this will have taken you a ton of time. Better over here, they're a little bit more sizable. I think that tree's possibly a little close to the fairway. Anyway, I'm kind of ignoring the hole, which is not ideal. I'm interested to see whether we've actually gone for flat bottom bunkers. See again here, I think we're kind of blind for no real reason. I can't see really where I'm hitting into, and given that spine, yeah, I think that sculpting's a little much. I know you can get sculpting like this, but I mean, if that's the case, and if there is this big mound in the fairway, you've got to let me see that off the tee. I think this needs to come down 10 feet, 10 feet. Like, I like that you've used a lot of interesting undulations, and this is making me think, and ultimately I don't think it's really penalising me. Looking at this slope, I probably want to come more in from the left. Got that as a bit more of a backstop. And I am so pro undulations in fairway. I think they've just got to be... You've got to be able to see them for a start. And it can't... And it's really tricky to get it where it's kind of not feeling video gamey, in the sense that you're kind of bouncing off one slope onto another. There's a shot. And come back a little. Oh, didn't quite throw it high enough. I like the colours of trees. I think with this theme you can get away with using a lot of the auto-gem planting. I think you've fallen a little into a trap of just going one coloured tree, different coloured tree, different coloured tree, different coloured tree, and kind of dotting them all over, which is fine. I think you might have more fun and more success if you kind of place them where you've got types of one colour, or kind of like clump them a little bit more. But that's a minor comment. Right, what are we looking at? 175. No, I think here. Nah, not quite. And just almost having that bigger underbrush underneath them would help. Whether you sink trees as well, you can do. Certainly the oaks in this theme work quite nicely. So I think this is the first hole. We've seen a number of bunkers. This is the first hole where they're coming into play. This sort of undulation I'm far more comfortable with. And I like that we've gone back to low-lying land now. That makes more sense. Okay, and lovely. We've got kind of a carry hazard where you give me all world out left if I want to hit driver out here, or if I want to. And I like the diagonal nature of this hazard a lot. I don't know that you needed the little grass mounds in the middle. I think they make your life and actually you've sculpted around them pretty well. It makes your life more difficult, and I don't think they really add to anything, especially when every other bunker doesn't have them. I really like the way you've done these two. So we're not quite flat bottoms. In fact, this one kind of goes up again in the middle. Yeah, I mean, I've only started learning doing flat bottoms really recently, and the trick is just to hammer the sharp brushes and go really, really slowly. And certainly doing this sort of thing, you also have to do them with splines. Doing these sort of large strip bunkers takes a lot of time. You can also see I don't mind the rough going into the bunker if it feels like it's supposed to. I mean, here you kind of have, kind of haven't, which suggests to me that it's not really that it's supposed to, it's just something you've missed a bit. But anyway, we're on kind of a. I like the way you've kind of used the bunkers to separate the fairway entirely and almost act as a complete lateral hazard. That's really cool. I think we can carry this. We're downhill. It should be fine. Yeah. But for pro clubs, I appreciate that's making a real decision and also giving an advantage to a master club player, which I think CC. I mean, we don't get a huge amount of that. Okay, big spine, which is great because if you're adding a lot of instant difficulty if you're one side versus the other. I think I'm kind of seeing a bit of a theme here with the sculpting. I think it's all the sculpting, and I think a lot of things are just very big, and I'm not sure they needed to be. I think this spine would have been better had it been a bit more subtle, had the green been a little smaller. Same with this runoff, feels a little massive. And I don't think you're getting me to run into the bunker. Maybe we are. I like the diagonal. That said, all of the ideas I really like, and I like the way you've used the natural terrain back here as well. I like the diagonal nature of that. I don't love the fact that we've kind of got two spines. I'd have probably had the one and had everything bleed off here from it and have that be your high point and that be your low. As it is, it looks like we've kind of got another one that's dribbling in as well. Yeah. So I don't love. I like that tree could really come into play on if you're too aggressive off the tee on some of these pins, and that's really cool. Yeah, in general, I think I like this. I really like the slopes. I think it's all it's a little big. Get a fast, thank you. Now I think I'm catching that slope, aren't I? Yeah. Okay, so that's on me. I had the right club, it's just not quite. These little bits of planting are lovely. They're kind of little bits around the tee. Just wonder where we could have had those a little bit more where... I don't know, I feel like we only see them really around the tee. Oh, nearly. Oh, wow, what have I seen there? wasn't really paying attention. Not sure what's happened to that, because even from... There's a weird break around that pin. I don't know if... feel like that pin could have maybe used a little bit of a flatten, but I think equally that's partly me. I think this planting feels... Some of this feels kind of autogeny. I'd have lost, like the little bushes in the middle of nowhere don't tend to work too well. Oh, we've got a Biarritz green. I see. Yeah, again, sightline. I mean, I think let me see all this bunk. You put all the time in the bunker work, but it's also all. Kind of feel we're falling into a trap of tricking people with mounds and running into things. It's happened on a couple of holes now. Okay, anyway. Okay, so we've got a sort of Biarritz punch bowl. It's an interesting green. I personally Biarritz not my thing, but that's a personal take. It's about how it's executed. I still think that big mound, we're kind of now on a rise, so that, yeah, it's all going towards us. I think just a lot of this is avoidable. I don't think the fairway needs to slope up to here. And it's not so much a gameplay thing, it plays fine, although I definitely don't love the bouncing balls forwards into bunkers if you're too aggressive. I think it's more kind of than anything, it's just like a visual thing. I don't think you've done a lot of work with the green, and I can't see really any of it. That's not a good swing. So, I think one of my other major comments over the course of this is going to be green slopes and like how logical they are. So you've got everything falling in, which means if you follow the architectural stuff, you're going to have puddles forming here and here, because that's your low point on the green. But equally, we've got a mound in the middle, which means if you're not dead on, I don't think you need this mound at all. I'd have really liked you to have somewhere on this green where everything flowed off. I don't think you need this slope here. I'd be happy if it all flowed left, kind of, if you're looking at it from the tee, left to right, and then went downhill. And here I'm hitting a downhill putt rather than hitting downhill into a backstop. I don't think that really affects me on any of the shots, even if I'm coming in from over. If I'm coming in from over here, maybe it's bouncing me forward a little bit, but I don't think you need this as a defence. And just cozy it down the mound. Oh, that was a good effort. Planting there is good. I really like that with the underbrush. I think when you've done it, it's been good. Here is really nice as well. Okay, so this is one of the ones we saw on the overhead, I think, of the screenshot. That bunker works a little bit better here. I still don't know if you need it. And this green I think is of a better size, particularly given the length of the hole. So we're kind of tempting people into going for it with driver. And we've got a slope that's maybe going to feed us down. We've also got a slope that's almost going to certainly end in a 3-putt. But bunkers... Yeah, again, I think this slope is a little messy. I kind of understand what you're going for, but I think raising the bunker up and having the green higher as well. We've got another spine. We've seen a couple of them now. I think we've fallen into a little bit of a trap with that. Now I do wonder, when you have water all the way to the left, could we use that on the shot? I kind of feel like if you'd given me the green over here, lose that bunker, just angle the green this way and flip it entirely so you've got your spine coming down here. Just think you've got a better hole with more, because at the moment I don't worry about missing short. If I miss short, I'm in the bunker. In fact, I might even play for it. Let's have a look at this. Because provided I don't get plugged, I don't think it's an issue. Yeah, let's go for it. Whereas, I think, and I'm 100% not doing that just to prove a point, but I think if that's water, I don't take that shot on at all. Whereas I think that's my that's almost my worst possible flop out of that bunker. And we've got a putt from 5 feet. I don't know. Drivable-ish path. I liked it. I don't think I think the question with that one is, what incentive are you giving me to lay way back? And on that one, I don't think there was any, really. Okay, we've got another super wide hole here. I think the green's gotten away from us again. You can kind of see the same things, so bunker funneling inwards as well. Let's bring up the overhead. I think you've also, part of the reason you've got these bunkers is because you've started the fairway quite a long way forward. I think if you'd started the fairway a little bit further back, I don't think you need any of this side really at all. It's kind of just making it all look a bit giant. And actually, I'd probably push that cross bunker forward a bit, because it's not like pro clubs would clear that easily. Although I get that, and this is I think the other thing with big greens, I can see a lot of really nice strategy in this hole that's kind of a little negated because of the size of your surfaces. So if we've got this spine down the middle, that's this little hog's back that's pushing us left or right, you've got the green angled so that we want to be aiming down the left hand side. But because I've got so much space on this hand side, on this side even, and so much room on the green, kind of which side I'm on doesn't really matter. It's really, and actually this side's given me a dead look into that backstop that you've given me because all of the bunkers are kind of feeding into the green. I think it is really difficult to do giant surfaces and kind of make the angles really matter. I mean, on the side that's an awful shot, but I don't think it wasn't so much the strategy. Okay, let's have a little look at this though. I like the spine in the middle, but I mean we've seen these spines quite a bit. I think, you know what, I'd have been happy if your green was literally just this part or just this part. I didn't think it needed to be as big. Oh, just hit it. Okay, I am enjoying it though, and I think run of pars has been varied, so 35-37. Interesting. I mean, admittedly the 5 is on a 10th hole, so... And are we now coming back towards the clubhouse again? Okay. Just going to take a quick zoom out because one thing is catching my eye at this point. Yeah, I was wondering about this. I think you've used a lot of the plot, and I don't think you necessarily needed to use all of this. I think if you'd move some of your holes a bit closer together, that might have made your life a little bit easier in terms of planting less, having to do and would have meant you could have done more of the underbrush work. I like the way you've got the big lake, and we've got kind of clubhouse there, and I think that's where we started. That was our first tee. So what we've gone 1, 2, 3. Can't remember what 4 was. Oh yeah, that was 4. Trying to remember. Oh yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8. Presumably 9 is par 3 there. And then 18 kind of ends up over here. So our first tee is quite away from the clubhouse, which I've got no issue with whatsoever. I just think if you'd had your holes a little close together, like say we'd run these two right next to each other, you're kind of, because you're using massive surfaces, that means there's a lot of space for you to fill anyway. When you're then making it so that you're not really close to each other, and each hole is its own little environment, you're giving yourself a lot of work in terms of space to fill. I just wonder whether that could have helped. Anyway, okay. Yeah, again we've got another slope that's just kicking us into a bunker. I also think for CC you don't need to do this. And I definitely don't like the tree overhanging the fairway. It kind of feels like that was avoidable. Particularly given that the other tree means that to see this pin we have to be going out this way. So I'm forced into a long layup back here, but equally if I lay up too well and too close to the edge of the fairway, I'm now wrestling with a tree. I do like the way that the green accentuates the angle though for this pin. The further left I am, the less I'm taking on that little runoff. That's cool. I think this is the shot. Oh, not with that swing, it's not. It's awful. Okay, slightly to the right. Pretty much straight at it afterwards. Right, anything else we're spotting? I'm not really going, I'm trying not to go hunting for things. I just kind of want to have a look around as I go. I think your understanding of a lot of the strategy is pretty solid. I think it's how you use it and how varied you make it that is kind of holding this back a little, for me anyway. We've had a lot of, and some of the sculpting is still, I know you've just had I know you've heard this a lot recently with the PGA course, but I think a lot of the sculpting is just a bit big and a bit, yeah. I think the word big would be one I keep coming back to. This green for me is again too big. If we're we've almost got 4 little mini greens, and it's really hard to make those slopes interact. Now, some of them do. So like this spine, if you've got pin 1 over here, which is where the fly has just gone to, and pin 2 here, well then we've got that, and then we've got a run off short. I like the green. Just feels maybe a little, this bunker I think gets a little bit skinny on you here, which is why you've done a good job with the sculpting here. I'd have probably just lopped off kind of around here and you'd have had a better look overall. I'll be honest, the bunker style is, I mean the shapes they're there, I'm not loving them. I don't know what it is though. I'm just not, I don't think I'm 100% sure whether they fit the course. And I'm not, I think the other things I'm not totally sure you know quite what you want them to be, whether they are kind of that McRainer style flat bottom geometric shapes, which they kind of have been in some places, or whether you want them to be the little kind of finger shaped bunkers with the little U's and W's or what have you. Okay, 3 under. I mean, I think difficulty-wise, difficulty's been good. We've got more of this planting and this retaining wall stuff, which has clearly taken you ages. Again, the more I'm seeing these holes, the more I'm far preferring these flatter holes. I think these holes where your sculpting is restrained, where we haven't got crazy mounds, I think have worked really well. And this is the kind of look I'd expect more from this sort of a course, where I think immediately you go in with retaining walls, we're kind of looking at clean and smooth, and this hole gives me all of that. I think it's where we're then suddenly getting giant mounds and fairways and greens and clean retaining walls, and there's just a bit of juxtaposition there. Right, okay, so for Masters this side is out completely, I think. Could we get there with 2 woods? Probably, but I think I'm going to get a bit of a better angle if I go this way anyway. I think we've also got, you've got a little bit of some awkward sculpting where you're retaining wall, and I think maybe not your waterline, but your retaining wall, and then it dips down, and like we'd try to keep the land above it. It's just grabbing my eye as looking weird, and you won't really realise why it's looking weird until you work out that it's what it is, and the fact that the water level might be higher than some of the water here. Certainly this bit is lower than here, and you can kind of see again where the wall is, that grass attached to the retaining wall is rendering in. Now let's look at, if we were laying up, where can we lay up? Well, we're not going to, we're going to hit 2 wood down here and play for kind of a putt across. I like that you've given me a lot of options for laying up here. I don't think you really need these bunkers here. I mean, are we really protecting against someone hitting 6 iron for their second shot to there? I get why they're there, they're kind of framing, but I don't think you needed them. Right, 276. Could be the club. And we get a slow, which is not quite what we wanted, but we're okay. Yeah, the grass again, I think we've got bits of autogen planting that I'd just turn it all down to 0 with the grass and rocks for autogen. Okay, do I need to be aiming this high? Probably not. Again, I really like the diagonal slope and the tier, and I've sectioned this green off relatively nicely. I think I'd also want to challenge you to move away from tiers and spines on your greens. Like, let's find some other ways of making things interesting. Can we have greens where it's almost all green slopes and no tiers? Certainly, I remember I challenged myself to do that with Hollingbourne, which was Parkland, and was trying just to be. I think I maybe had a couple of tiers on there, but how can you make a course and greens play interesting using only green slopes and the occasional yellow one? Might be something to consider. I think we've gone a little bit crazy on the bunkering here. I like the diagonal bunkering, but we don't need fairway down there. Oh, we've got a nice smiley face and eyebrows up here. I'm trying to work out my thoughts on this. I'm interested to know how wide this is. So what if that's 256, that's 154, that's about 90 yards. 90 yards is going to be about there. We're looking at about 110 maybe yards of width, which is huge. It's not bad, but I think what you're finding here is you're struggling to fill all this space, and you've used a lot of bunkers. I think there's definitely this one at the end doesn't need to be there. I'd argue probably this one as well. And I think you could start the whole... Yeah. I mean, I do have a choice to make, and actually it's a good one. And for Masters, well, okay, let's say Masters we're here, Pro Clubs we're kind of the end of... Pro Clubs, I think this is... that bunker starts coming to play and it's placed really nicely. This one's great for Masters. All of the rest of them don't really matter, I think, other than for visuals, and for visuals it's just a bit too... it's just a bit too much going on for me. Okay, we've got to a back pin, back tier. I mean, it doesn't really matter which side we go, which is fine. So it's kind of me picking my choice. And we'll go this way. No, I mean, we'll go straight down the middle, that's fine. Yeah. Oh, and I've missed a fairway that was 100 odd yards wide. You did, however, for the width of that fairway, you did a really good job of, I've said it, I've kind of been a little bit critical of it earlier, but for that wider fairway, you did a really good job of effectively narrowing the width with a bunker placed here, and the way that cut in. I probably had a safer option going down the right, but I think because you're slightly cambering it off, I like the way you've done that. I think that's one of your best, that is probably your best tee shot, even though I didn't like the visuals of how those bunkers totally looked. Oh, and we got it very fast. That should be okay. Maybe not. Yeah, I'm kind of coming back to the same thoughts on this course. I think the green surfaces are just a bit too big. Yeah, didn't hit that one. And yeah, I think with all of that, I like that you've gone big and tried to... I think we could have used a bit of planting over here to avoid some of that space, but I like that we're now seeing another hole. I'd still like them to be a bit close together. This one looks like a better version of what the one where it all went downhill into bunkers wanted to be, and I really hope that we kind of properly... See, again, we've got a giant mound that's obscuring our sightline. Actually, this view I really like. I think you've really got to find a way of dropping this so that we see that view with the downhill as well as getting a view of the hole from the tee. Like, if that was our view from the tee, then that's golden. The problem is it's that. I think we're definitely using bunkers to fill space at this point with these 4 front ones because they're nowhere in play. I think gameplay wise, my major thing with this course is probably that I really like this view. Again, planting up here, I would love to see more of it. I think what you've done is good. I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see the rocks bigger, the bushes bigger, because that will have taken you loads of time and you'll get a better effect by just... Actually, this is the one thing that you can make bigger on this course. And will really benefit from doing so. I liked the little... I saw the horses and stuff over on here. That's cool. Tempo has gone awfully today. After that kind of one shot on the second, maybe. Or was it the first? Okay, 30 feet. 2 inches down. Some pretty quick slope there. And that's nowhere near high enough. I think the bunker sculpting that you've done is good. Yeah, another bit of grass that... Again, I feel the fairway is starting really soon. which means you've got this bunker, and my landing zone must be around about here. I think one of the things I'd look at is, what are your other ways? How do other designers fill space between tee and fairway? Okay. That is a big red slope. I mean, we're on a short par 4, so shortish. And I like this bunker in the middle giving us options. Again, maybe a little overly large in that, am I maybe slightly too pinched here with the diagonal nature of everything? I feel like it might be a touch pinched for my liking, if I'm trying to play out right. I'd have probably liked you to, well, I don't know. I think at CC level, let me hit this fairway out right, kind of probably run the fairway through here, because there's still the risk if I hit a fast, which you've seen CC players do, or hit a slow, then I'm off. Maybe make this angle, I don't think anyone's going to play down here, but I like that you've kind of made the hazard diagonal this way, because it's more and more in play up the right hand side than it is on the left. The left you can simply carry it, probably. Maybe the play's up the left. Just try and bound it round. If I hit a fast, I'm probably bouncing into the fairway. If I hit a slow, I'm probably over. Let's go left. Ah. I thought I would get over that. Ah. And this is why I'm on CC. Anyway, up 23, but I don't think I'm massively punished for being in here. As in, I think you've given me a fair shot at escape. Well, there we go. Got a nice kick off the bunker slope. That's purely by luck than judgment. I would say that actually. I still think, even though it's just helped me out, I don't love the bunker slope mounding into the green quite that much. I don't even think it's that. I think it's how they're mounding into the green. I'll try and find another example and show you. I like the bunker stacking here, that's cool. We haven't seen that before, but it still kind of fits in with the theme. I like that you've given me more space to bounce the ball over. You know what, I really like the look of this hole. I think maybe you've got a few too many bunkers again up here. I'd have lost this one and maybe, I don't know. I certainly don't think this one needs to come around quite as far as it is. I like that I've got a feeling of left to right on the hole, and this little low valley, I'd have liked to see maybe the ground planted a little bit more, but I really like that area. This is going to be an intimidating second shot. Yeah, that is your best shot on this course so far. Again though, I feel this is, yeah, it's a par 5. I'd have liked you to have protect against the bump over the bunker a little less. Maybe it's just a front pin. I think for a back pin, but I'd like to see it. I'd like to feel like there's a chance of me hitting it here and running it on and stopping it. I think that slope protects it, that slope protects it, that slope protects it. I just feel like we've maybe done a bit too much to defend this this flag location. We'll see. I've hit it about as I'd want. Yeah. I don't know. That's a tricky one. I'm ambivalent about it. I really like the idea. I think I'd want to see people bouncing it that far short. I mean, admittedly, I was trying to bounce it a little bit further short, so maybe it does work. I think the idea is great. I'd have maybe, I think, what would I have done? And interestingly, I think this green size is exactly what you should have gone with the whole round. This one's definitely smaller, 34 yards deep, and it's really noticeable. This is probably the best green you've got. I'd have liked all of this to maybe come back another 10 yards or 5 yards. So let's say the green started here and maybe came out a bit right. That way you've given me more way to use the ground. Not much, and the reason I'm nitpicking so much about that approach shot is because there's so much of it I loved and it's almost perfect. Anyway, see if we can get a back-to-back eagle. That would be fun. No, didn't need the last little move at the end. Still, can't argue with that. I do think that's your best hole so far, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you could kind of see everything on. The sight lines were really good on both shots. Same here, I can see everything off the tee, and it's just making the world of difference. I do think this one looks over bunkered, but we're on a long par 5, and you're, I guess, trying to divide it into sections. Yeah, and we've got a split fairway. I think my main suggestion coming away from this course will be try to work with a little more restraint on a course, in that let's use smaller slopes. Let's try to do minimal, not necessarily elevation change, but so yanked it. Let's try to go away from some of the things that you probably know are crutches. You'll develop hugely as a designer by doing so. So let's get rid of some of those spines in greens, or the mounds kicking you into bunkers. Let's try low level stuff. Let's try going to, I don't know, a maximum width of fairway width of 35 yards and see where you end up. I think you'll find it really beneficial. Certainly I know I did when I did it. Try to come up with greens that don't use tiers. That was another dreadful swing. If we make it out of this with birdie, we have gotten away with one. Well, that feels like cheating. I think, yeah, I'd like to see you also kind of have a bit of a more consistent feel for green sizes. I like this one. If you've got a pin there, we're going to have words. Well, there's 108 yards, odd. I hope you haven't. I feel like one there, one there, one there. I'm hoping the fourth is up here rather than in there. That is barely it. I think lose the apron. You've got no need for it. And actually on this hole you could use probably bringing the green down here and then coming up and use it that way. Bunkering's nice. Yeah, again, I mean, we're talking about scale. I think this hole, it drops 30 feet and then up 10, 15 feet. I think we can raise this up 10 feet, we can raise the green up 5 feet. I think, and you'd probably have a better effect as it is. It kind of looks a bit chasmy when you go to your flyover. Really like the planting, the tree framing. I'd like you to have edged the tees a little bit closer so that I can see the bunkers off the tee. You can see they're kind of half, I can see where they are, but they're half cut out. A little bit of a nitpick, perhaps. Oh, sit down. Yeah, we're okay. But I really like that par 3. I wonder whether I'd have put it here, because you're right up against the water. I think this whole design requires 0 water. You've got the water there. This is just a thought for, and this is not a critique of the hole at all. I like it. I just wonder, you could have put this hole anywhere on the plot. Really? Did it need to be when you're right next to water? So we're 8 under, and I have not played particularly well. That's good. Yeah, we've got another blind tee shot. I think that'll be another thing I'd try to add to your list of things I'd suggest to do for your next course. I do feel like we've got a lot of water in this course, and it's barely ever been in play, which I'm not dead against, but I think you could have possibly used it a little better. Okay, this is the longest approach I've had in for a while, and I really appreciate it. I don't know if bunkerless suits this hole. I mean, obviously we had the one in the fairway, but I mean this green. You've bunkered loads. It kind of feels a bit of a, and we've got them in the background. It kind of feels a bit weird that we suddenly don't have them here. There's another terrible swing. Wow. Still, hopefully get away with a par. Oh, that is a hideous putt. I stuttered. Ah, dreadful. Let's go make double. Interesting. That was weird. I keep getting little stutters on this hole. I don't know why. Not putting that down to you. I think that's my computer struggling. I think that hole also used. We're finishing on a long par 3. I get what you're doing with these two holes kind of being mirror images. I don't know that I love finishing on a par 3. Wow. That's gone quite a way. And I've been punished with a really tricky putt. 63. Yeah. I mean, it's nice and doable. I think a lot of my thoughts on 9 can kind of mirror this hole. I kind of think it's... I think partly the green is so big that the water isn't in play, and the bunkers are so far back that a 230 yard par 3 that carries over water should be really heroic, and yet it didn't quite get that feel. I mean, apart from the aberration on the 17th, that was a pretty solid round. I'm okay with that. So yeah, I think let me just load up scorecard and distances. So general thoughts. I mean, you know the major ones. I think the surfaces were too wide for the most part, and the sculpting was a bit too harsh. I think if you dial both of those down a bit, you'll see a lot more success. It's over bunkered for me in a number of places, and I think that's just something that will come with just learning kind of to use your eye a bit more and seeing what other people do and what you're used to, and what kind of looks natural. I thought the planting in spots was really nice. I think the course kind of suffered that you had a lot of ideas, but it didn't quite have that one focus of what does this want to be in terms of, are we clean, are we rugged, are we flat bottom, are we not, are we geometric, are we not, are we... You kind of get what I mean. I think it could have used that bit more clarity. That actually, I think your previous one, what was it? Shoreditch, I think that has a real clarity of vision, and that's kind of missing for me a little bit here. Playability and shot values. I think my major thing is the sculpting, and the fact that the greens, whilst huge, they were really big, and I think that kind of took away from the strategy on a few holes where it's easy to make angles bigger from the tee when you're using really wide surfaces. If you're using really wide greens, it's hard to make them matter, if that makes sense. There's shot values. Let's have a look at distances. I think par 3s felt nicely spaced. Yeah, we've got 160, 200, 115, 198. Yeah, we had a good range of par 3s there. I felt there were a couple of shorter par 4s that I liked. I think the flow of the routing was really good. I'd have probably split your back-to-back 5s. I really liked 14, 15 kind of underwhelmed, partly because it was back-to-back, I think. 16 I think you could have put anywhere in the round. Yeah, I think kind of after I think 14 was your real high point, and these 4 holes kind of struggled to live up to that. 16 was good as well. I can't say I love ending both 9s on a 3, but it's a bold choice. It's just not one I'd have necessarily made. I'm trying to think of shot values. You gave me opportunities to use the ground game. You, in spite of what I'm saying about kind of the sculpting, it did make me think in terms of where I was landing the ball off the tee. There are some tee shots that were really nicely pinched. Thinking of the one with the diagonal string of bunkers, and that short one that we flukily eagled 13. That was really nicely pinched off the tee, and strategic in that regard. Did I fit? I think I had a chance to hit long irons and short irons, and there were some kind of wedge holes. I'd have maybe liked to have seen you bring in a driver pitch hole somewhere. Kind of, I think a few more holes in the 340 to 420 range might have been good. Maybe one more. But actually, no, I think you've got that. Ignore all of that. I think that's fine. Technical execution. I think we've touched on a number of the points I would make kind of ad nauseam. I would challenge you to do some of those things that I kind of suggest, because I think it will make you a far better designer in terms of understanding your strategy and your angles, and just learning that bit more restraint. I think the technical execution, the bunkers were generally well done. I think the planting was a little messy in places in terms of where you, I think neglected to get rid of some autogen stuff. Is there anything else I've mentioned on technicals? Probably not. I think the retaining wall was well done. Some of the green sloping I thought was a bit random. For me, that comes into technical execution in the, are we making sure the slopes all make sense? I think the way the bunkers were done well, but I think they kind of, I didn't get a chance to show you, the way they came into the greens. I think you can do that a little bit more kind of gradually as well, rather than we tend to have maybe a foot of red slope as it went from, let's say, 1 foot above the green was the bunker lip to 0 feet on the green level, and that change happened really dramatically quickly. I think if we could spread that out into kind of green and yellow slopes and just gradual slopes that affect the green, you'll see a lot more benefit. Right, aesthetics and environment. Yeah, the aesthetics were nice in places. I think it struggled for identity in terms of what did it want to be. I think it's really spread out, which made it difficult for you to kind of really cohesively plant it as well, kind of underbrush and things like that. What you did do was really, really nicely done. There were a few holes that really grabbed my eye in terms of bunker style and layout and those, and when they were hit, they were a real hit. I liked 14 a lot, I liked 4 a lot. 12, was it 12 or 13? I think both 12 and 13 perhaps were really good looks as well. The routing, flow, cohesion, variety of holes. I've talked about the back-to-back par 5s and each 9 on a 3. I think those would have changed. Looking back on it, I'd have definitely changed one to a more straightforward, this is my course. In actual fact, I think one kind of was your course. We had a blind tee shot to a very moundy fairway, But I don't think that's really what you want to sell your course on or hang your hat on. I think if you'd had your first hole being not blind and you can see everything, and actually I'm really thinking of that one where you had the little valley of kind of trees on the right. I want to say 12. I think that would have been a good kind of idea of an opening hole. And I think my final one on going back to technicals would be your sight lines. I'd work really hard to make sure off the tee can we see everything you want us to see, be it bunkers, and just really critique that view again and again and again. Can we see everything you want us to see? Bunkers, planting, where the hole's going, all of those things. Because I felt for me too often we were just seeing a blind mound that we were about to hit, or we were hitting to a skyline fairway and then over the brow of the hill there were all sorts of mounds that were going to kick us into bunkers. I'm being very I mean that wasn't on every hole by any means, but it was on enough for me to notice. So yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, do reach out and ask any questions you may have. All the best of luck in the contest. I did really enjoy it. I think you've got a good range of holes there. You've got the difficulty level about right. I think the greens were interesting, and they will play well on CC. So yeah, best luck in the contest, and do reach out if you have any further questions. But yeah, catch you soon.